Hello and welcome to Ani Collector. Today, we'll show you Monster Girl Doctor follows the adventures of a monster-specialized doctor and her Lamia assistant. Grab your snacks and watch out. The anime begins on a post-war battlefield, with a narrator telling the events of the war. Nobody knows what motivated the conflict, but it came to an end after years of exhaustion, with humans and monsters agreeing to dwell together, flower blossoms in the sunshine on the battlefield, symbolizing a fresh beginning. Following that, we hear the moaning of a female minotaur whose breasts are being examined by Dr. Glenn, a monster expert. The minotaur is dressed in what anyone would wear to see a doctor, a bikini top and shorts. After the examination, Dr. Glenn reveals her pregnancy, and she leaves with her husband to surprise their folks. Glenn's secretary is a pink-hued Lamia named Saphantite, aka Sappy, who is envious of Glenn's female patients. They soon receive a letter from Dr. Thulhi. Glenn owns a clinic thanks to her. She asks for his assistance in treating the arena fighters at Lindworm's Central Hospital. So, he and Sappy board a carriage to get there. When they arrive, Tisalia Scythia greets them, introducing herself as the lone heiress of the illustrious Scythia Transportation as well as a renowned arena fighter. In his camp, Glenn does physical checks on various arena fighters. Tisalia shows up for her checkup as well. She attempts to woo Glenn for marriage while he checks her healthy chest. Sappy is triggered, and two monstrous chicks get into a catfight. Glenn proclaims Tisalia to be in perfect health. That evening, he and Sappy prepare to return home. Before they depart, they run into Tisalia's attendants, Kay and Lorna, who are concerned about Tisalia's health due to her recent combat defeats. Sappy enters Glenn's room at bedtime to find him ruminating. She senses his worry at Tisalia's failure. He thinks Tisalia is in perfect health and wonders if the problem is one that a doctor would overlook. After that, they both have drinks, and Glenn decides to return to the arena, much to Sappy's chagrin. The next day, Tisalia loses for the 10th time and returns to the stable, heartbroken. Dr. Glenn meets her there and suggests that her worn-down hooves need fitting. It is unheard of for a centaur to go without shoes, but Tisalia is terrified of anybody touching her hooves. She refuses, but her attendant sees her, and Sappy clutches her so Glenn can trim her hooves and put on horseshoes. The next day, Tisalia returns to the arena and wins with a rousing round of applause and kudos. She keeps praising Glenn, which enrages Sappy. After all, she is Glenn's childhood friend. In the flashback, Sappy and Glenn meet as children. She's taken in as a hostage to live with Glenn and his family. It is part of both families' contract to bridge the gap between humans and monsters during the war. During her stay, she grows to like Glenn, and when the war ends after a year, she returns to her family to meet the contract. In the present, Sappy says she never expected to see Glenn again until they crossed paths in medical school. Glenn then invites her to join him on a voyage to the Marrow waterways, where most aquatic monsters reside. They board a gondola, being towed by a mermaid jock. Glenn inquires as to how albino lamias thrive in the sunshine, to which Sappy responds that they are nocturnal. Then they purchase purified water from one of the shops, which is the object of the trip. Before they leave, a little mermaid vendor, Lulala, refers to them as a couple, which piques Sappy's interest, and she insists on visiting the mermaid's small shop. She introduces herself as a street performer and persuades them to purchase a song by mentioning the nearby Lover's Bridge. Glenn pays her, and she performs a lovely song. Glenn's instincts tell him something is amiss when she starts coughing, and he invites her to board the gondola so that he may examine her. He examines her mouth for inflammation, and after further examination, he concludes she has a lung and gill problem. He realizes that her schedule is unworkable because she spends too much time in the sun, which is unhealthy for her species. He then proceeds to apply an ointment to her gills and advises her to avoid excessive sun exposure. When she hears this, a distressed Lulala begins grumbling about how necessary it is for her to make money for her sick mother, as she is the oldest of 4 siblings. The commotion of a mother wailing for her drowning son breaks the talk. Lulala jumps into the water to save him right away. She makes it safely back to the wharf with the wet lad before dropping out into the water from weariness. Dr. Glenn knows Lulala's medical condition from previous mermaid drowning cases and dives after her. He extends his hand to her and administers CPR on her, which is both romantic and life-saving. As a result, Lulala's gills open, allowing her to breathe underwater. But, surprise, surprise, Dr. Glenn is born without gills and begins drowning. Sappy, thankfully, uses her tail to draw them both out of the water. Everyone is okay, except Safi, who is enraged with Glenn for hugging Lulala for too long. What if she found out about the kiss, air, CPR? A few days later, Glenn and Sappy go to a concert in Central Council Hall. They find Lulala seated on a fountain display, surrounded by awestruck spectators, as she starts singing the full rendition of her song. After her performance, the dyad approaches to congratulate Lulala, who honors Dr. Glenn for his effective meds and swims away. In the next scene, Kanai, a warrior lady, is following slavers along a street when 10 of them ambush her, culminating in battle. The slime woman receives a bioregenerative bath in the clinic from Dr. Glenn and Sappy. After expressing her gratitude, an attendant escorts the slime woman home in the bathtub. Suddenly, the clinic door knocks, and Lindworm City Council representative Scotty Dragenfeld enters the door. She is regarded as the most influential person in town and the sole authority on integrating monsters into the city. The two are ecstatic to see her and inquire as to what has brought her there. Scotty talks, but her voice frequency is inaudible, so Kunai, her bodyguard, steps in and voices her words. Scotty states that Dr. Thulhi recommended she consult Glenn about suturing Kunai's arm, which was severed in the mentioned battle. Scotty also discloses that Kunai is an abrasive flesh golem created by a doctor's experiment. That is why Kunai despises doctors. After Scotty leaves, Kunai becomes an aggressive jerk who trolls doctors and pushes Glenn to do something else because he can't reconnect her arm, and she then exits the clinic. Outside, she spots one of the slavers and pursues him. She misses him, but he pops up out of nowhere and brutally attacks her. Glenn goes after her and hears Tizalia scream as she has seen a leg on the street. He takes up the leg and starts examining it, while Kunai can sense the feelings of her torn legs from afar. She can also hear the unfulfilled desires of the corpses that created her ill-stitched body. Still, she is a first-rank warrior in the arena. Glenn embarks on finding her lost arm and comes across Lulala, who hands him Kunai's arm and complains about people dumping garbage in the water. When Glenn expresses concern over not being able to find Kunai, Lulala advises asking from the twitching arm and leg, which he does, only to find Kunai motionless on the ground. He approaches her, but an egoistic and distressed Kunai rejects his help. Nonetheless, Glenn is committed to helping her, and she surrenders. He pulls out his apparatus, which he uses to reattach her limbs and sew them together on a microscale. Glenn shares his insights while doing the procedure, making Kunai feel like she is no longer a corpse. He manages to suture her leg before the sun sets, and they both depart, but not before Kunai offers her thanks to him. A gang of shady slavers from the alley behind watches them and laughs evilly. Sappy is also busy at her clinic, and her buxom spider-drinking friend visits the clinic, where she sows a seed of doubt in Sappy's mind about Glenn's loyalty and then leaves. When Glenn arrives home, Sappy catches him off guard by announcing, "Look, I'm pregnant." Another flashback reveals how much Sappy's departure impacted Glenn and how they reunited in med school. In the present, when Sappy informs him she's pregnant, Glenn claims it's impossible because he didn't sleep with her. No, he didn't say that. Instead, he says because lamias are oviparous, they can't get pregnant. Sappy tries to make her point by retrieving an egg, which Glenn deduces is a harpy's egg. Before they could carry on the discussion, the slavers burst into the house. Sappy employs her tail to whip them, and the duo safely makes it out of the clinic. Soon after, they are approached by a silhouetted figure, who turns out to be Kunai, carrying a dead slaver. She warns them of slavers' nefarious activities. They traffic harpies to force them to provide eggs, which they then sell to humans with questionable taste. Then she leads them to a tiny raft, where Scotty and Lulala are waiting. They all board the boat, which Lulala is towing. When he questions why Lulala is towing the boat, he discovers that Scotty has hired her for the covert mission in addition to offering her a singing job. Glenn wonders aloud if they exploit her poverty, but Lulala politely declines. As they approach their destination, the robbers attack them with bows, but our good friend Tizalia steps in, and she fights to keep the slavers at bay as Glenn and his squad search for harpies. Soon, they arrive at the slavers' hideout and discover captive harpies. One of them is in excruciating agony because an egg has been stuck in her oviduct due to stress. Glenn begins treating her in an effort to put a stop to her suffering when the slavers rush through the door. Sappi and Scotty come to blows with them, while Kunai engages in combat with the slavers' ringleader, who considers himself an ordinary trader. Respect. During the commotion, Sappi reveals two secrets in her monologue. She contracted an incurable disease after meeting Glenn and comes from a lineage of assassins. She was ordered to assassinate his family, but could not do it. In the fight, she collapses after being stabbed with a poison dagger by a slaver. She wakes up in the council chamber, with Glenn seated beside her bed. Glenn is unconcerned since he knows the poison won't kill Lamias. The best it can do is make them dizzy. Here, Sappi reveals her darkest secret. She has the line of the assassin clan and is taken aback when Glenn claims he already knew. He explains that his family had the same motives, which is why she fell ill once. When he professes his support and care for Sappi, a delighted Lamia seeks to indulge him in the naughty act. Before we could watch some anime cliché lovemaking, Sappi faints again, thanks to the residual poison in her system. She hints in another monologue that she contracted an incurable sickness because of Glenn. The episode ends there, and we'll be returning with a summary of the following episodes, so hold your horses and subscribe to our channel to keep up with the latest. See you in the next video.